If you are seeing this video, you know that this post is a day late, and I truly apologize for posting on July 12th, a full 24 hours after World Benzodiazepine Awareness Day. I would argue, however, that this is actually a good thing. You see, at the end of this month, I will be celebrating 9 years off of clonazepam, taken for 8 years nightly between 2004 and 2012, exactly as my doctor prescribed. Over the last 9 years, people have tried to convince me that the horrifying experience that I had weaning off of clonazepam was unusual and that it was a freak accident. And as much as I wish this were the case, unfortunately, my story is not unique. In fact, thousands of people all over the world have been injured while taking and coming off of psychiatric medications, including SSRIs, antipsychotic medications, and benzodiazepines like Xanax, Valium, Ativan, and clonazepam or Klonopin. Short term, we all know these drugs work because they produce the desired effect. But when taken long term, even exactly as prescribed, a person can become physically dependent on them. All mood altering drugs cause functional brain changes, including cognitive impairment, perceptual and sensory disturbances, problems with digestion, balance, hearing, hypersensitivity to touch, smell, light, all kinds of problems, hundreds of somatic symptoms that are just positively debilitating. And these impairments can last a very long time. And in some cases, people are so debilitated, they are actually moved to take their own lives. Hundreds of articles, websites, and blogs are devoted to supporting people who are trying to cope with these excruciating physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual symptoms associated with protracted psychiatric medication withdrawal. Nevertheless, so many doctors, general practitioners, psychiatrists, neurologists, and even people in like mental health professions have continued to ignore warnings or just are uninformed about the warnings about the dangers associated with long-term psych med use and benzodiazepine use, and still broadly prescribe these drugs to individuals of all ages. Most alarming is the fact that children, babies even, are being prescribed these drugs, as their brains are still developing. For decades, the general public has been given the impression that psychiatric disorders are caused by chemical imbalances in the brain, and that these psychiatric drugs actually fix these imbalances like insulin does for diabetes. However, what we are seeing today is that this narrative is a marketing story and it's not based on science. It's a story that was promoted by psychiatry and pharmaceutical companies for profit. In fact, psychotropic drugs do not fix chemical imbalances at all. Instead, they disrupt normal neurotransmitter function. In 2020, the United States Food and Drug Administration made a major admission about benzodiazepine drugs, during which they acknowledged that patients can become physically dependent on them even after just a few days. They acknowledge that stopping the drugs abruptly or reducing the dose too quickly can cause severe withdrawal reactions, including seizures, which can be life-threatening. And they stated that severe withdrawal side effects can last from weeks to months. With more than 300,000 complaints about benzodiazepines logged into the FDA's adverse event reporting system, this admission is long overdue. Over the last few years, it's become painfully obvious to me and to so many other people that psychiatry has taken a wrong turn when it comes to medicating human emotions with pharmaceuticals. And I say this because during the during the COVID quarantine, especially, so many people began taking these medications, and people were stuck at home, they weren't working, they're anxious, depressed, fighting with their spouses, feeling afraid, not being able to interact with their family members or their friends, feeling isolated. And the prescriptions went up over 25%, maybe even, I saw some reports that said even as high as 34%. And if that's true, if those numbers are really accurate, then we are already in the throes of a benzodiazepine epidemic, which foretells of a problem which we have not even been able to conceptualize, especially since many people take these medications long term and they don't begin to experience problems until later. The normal and unfortunately painful parts of being human are being pathologized, which is to say that big pharma has turned suffering into a vibrant marketing opportunity. When I first learned back in 2011 that I was going to have to work with an addiction specialist to taper off the clonazepam that I had been taking, I was stunned. I had no idea what I was in for would take so many years, and I had no idea that at the end it would leave me so cognitively impaired and overall disabled. I didn't know anyone else who had gone through this experience, and I had to really work hard to find people who could help guide me through this nightmare, right? But now people all over the world are kind of waking up to this bad messaging that we've all been sold. Over the last year, I've crossed paths with so many people who actually seem to be far better informed about the dangers of long-term psychotropic interventions in general. People are really starting to question. Once you truly understand what is going on and happening to you, and once you start making the necessary changes, life really does get so much better. Which is to say that if you think that you can get through this experience without working on yourself, without improving your communication skills, without developing self-awareness, without learning how to set appropriate boundaries, without facing familial and cultural and religious messaging, without doing those things, then you are not understanding what this experience is truly about and what this opportunity is truly about. So today, at 9 years off, almost 9 years off, with the exception of some lingering nerve sensitivities in my face, near my mouth and my teeth, I live a pretty darn good life. Things are not at all the way that they were before, but it's a new normal, and I've learned how to count my blessings rather than focus on the things that I don't have. While I no longer operate out of a traditional school classroom, I still consider myself to be a teacher, although I'm teaching very different subject matter. I'm also an author, and you might have read or listened to my book about the experience of moving through benzodiazepine withdrawal. It's called Psychiatrized: Waking Up After a Decade of Bad Medicine. It's also available on an ebook and also in an audiobook formats, because Lord knows I couldn't read while I was going through this experience. I'm also a certified recovery peer advocate these days, and you may have worked with me one-on-one in a coaching capacity. I'm also an artist, and some of you may have taken my classes or purchased my work online or at a festival. When I look back at this experience now, I am a much stronger person than I was back in 2001, when I truly overvalued the opinions of everyone else around me, especially people who did not have my best interest at heart. Life is very simple for me now. I don't need fancy cars, fancy clothes. I have my health restored, and I think that's the main thing that I learned, is that your health is the most important thing. If you're intrigued and would like to possibly work with me one-on-one or take one of my art classes, you can find me on my website. Starting up in September, I offer a Wednesday night art class, which is comprised of people who are coming through psychiatric medication injuries, and it's a really nice class. You're welcome to inquire about it. I'm happy to explain how that works. I do not accept friend requests on Facebook from strangers. But if you write to me via my website through my contact page,
I promise I will respond to you directly. The biggest lesson I learned during this experience is that no one was coming to save me. I had to decide to save myself.
I would welcome a conversation with anyone who's going through this. You can find me at www.razjacobson.store. There is a tab it's called the BENZO support tab, and you can read about how I handle those calls under that tab. Or you can just reach out to me and I'll send you that information. Stay the course. Eventually, you will right this ship.